the Business of Property podcast. I'm Simon.
I'm Stuart.
We're both property people running our own businesses, and this podcast is just us chatting every week about the reality of anything and everything property. Now, unfortunately, our reality this week is that we haven't managed to line up recording with our guest that we were hoping to talk to about energy efficiency and EPCs and property and building and landlording and all sorts of wonderful things. So we will unfortunately not be talking about those things today. We will try our best to line up our recordings better for a future episode and still bring you all of that fantastic information and content. But for now, I'm afraid you're stuck with just Stuart and I chatting about some other, hopefully, interesting property things. And whether you think they're interesting or not, perhaps you could let us know. You can reach out to us on Twitter. We are at Biz of Property. That's BIZ of Property. So please do get in touch. Let us know whether you think we're talking about good things, bad things. Send us questions, anything you like, really. And we are going to get started with some electrician stories. So what's yours today, Stuart?
Well, it's a really short and old tale of us getting an electrician out to fit in an electric hob and oven into our little studio flat. And we were expecting a cost of around £100, maybe a little bit more. But rather than just taking the oven out and replacing it for £100, we got an invoice for £396.
Oops.
To be fair, the electrician did do, and I do want to say this electrician did do a very good job, sent photos and was outstanding. But our electrician tale is simply that it's a reminder that whatever you think you're going to budget for in property maintenance, at least double it. But yeah, that was a short tale. But I met with the electrician, very nice guy, did a really good job actually, and it just took a lot longer than we were expecting because it was originally done 20 years ago. He's then redone it, done it properly, fused it, so it's now safe for tenants. So it's an old tale, but actually for all the right reasons. What's your electrician tale?
Old regulations versus new regulations,
Yeah.
Which is actually similar to mine, really. So you, I'm sure, know, and hopefully all our listeners know, that when you're renting out property these days, you have to have an EICR, an electrical safety certificate. These last for 5 years. You only have to get them done every 5 years. And this was a new rule that came in a couple of years ago, I think I'm wanting to say. Not 100% certain now, going back. But it's relatively recent. And there was a big rush for all the property people, all the landlords, to go out and get these done. So electricians were super busy and sort of a bit pressured to get through them all. One of my rental properties, some of my rental properties in different areas. So some of them I'd done in advance, and some of them got done around the time that was all sorted. One of them in particular, though, in one particular area, so only this one covered by this electrician. They came in and they did the certificate and they sent through the certificate, and now, approximately a year and a bit or 2 years or something after the event of actually doing the work, they have now finally invoiced for it. So I don't quite know what this electrician has been living on for the last 2 years, but they seem to only just be getting around to issuing invoices for their EICR work. And in this case, it was updating some of the fuse box and panel and stuff. So I mean, it was 500 odd quid invoice. So it's not insignificant. But yeah, I don't get it. I mean, surely the most important thing from a small business's point of view is to get the invoice out.
Well, as we know, tradespeople particularly, and I think they wouldn't mind me saying it, but there's definitely a higher penetration of their sort of abilities around administration and business process. And electrician I used, I think, didn't request payment for 4 to 6 months, and we're talking, this was thousands of pounds. And I did remark to him, I said, business must be going well for you right now if you're not chasing me for this payment. And then he proceeded to chase me regularly. But
well, you asked for it.
Yeah, quite literally, yes.
Perhaps we should move on to something else you asked for in a roundabout way. And this is a property that you're hopefully lining up a purchase for. And this is a direct to vendor purchase. So do you want to fill us in a bit on the background, and then we can chat around how it arose and other fun things.
Yeah, well, this is one of those situations where I think until you're in property, you're not really sure how they come about, if they're really true, or and the other thing is, I think a lot of things for me kind of got a little bit tainted by all of the property courses that talk about direct to vendor this and direct to vendor that, and it can feel like a bit of a dirty word to me sometimes about how this happens. But what my experience has shown me now that actually most things will happen as a result of relationships that you start to build in property. And, as we've talked about, just trying to help people in property. And I'll condense this down into hopefully a very short story. But essentially, I did some activity a couple of years back looking for rent-to-rent landlords that just were fed up with, random rent revenues, voids, and so on and so forth. Anyway, this landlord reached out, and I've been in touch with them for about a year and a half, and actually supporting them in upgrading their property. So for about a year and a half, a lot's happened within the property: painting, redecoration, carpeting, new kitchens, and so on. And it got to a stage where we kind of said, look, either we're going to do this or we're not. And then the owner said, actually, we've now decided to make a sale. I did find out that there was an estate agent at the property because I had a
spy watching. Yes.
Well, yeah, one of my spies from my local team that said, oh, there's an agent at this property. And so I knew that the owner now wanted to sell. So I said, look, if you're looking to sell, we could potentially come to an agreement, and been batting around prices. And yeah, came to an agreement as of today, as we're recording, actually, about an hour ago, got a text to say that we're agreed. So long way to go in the property conveyancing process, but we've hit the first hurdle.
Fantastic. So my first question is, what is this property?
It's a 5-bed, 2-bathroom Victorian terrace property. It's within a stone's throw of the university. It's in my sort of target investment area. And yeah, that's kind of what it is. And although we've mentioned that work that's been done, it's probably still, I would put it somewhere on the mid scale of qualities. And that's not to be, disrespectful of the house, but I think it's one of those, I just call it a mid-range property. It'll probably be fine for working professionals and the lower price point students in the market.
Where are you thinking you would take this property? Into the young professionals or into the student market, or have you not decided?
It's yet to be decided. However, because of its proximity to the university, it's also minutes. I mean, it's literally across the road and you're at the main train station. But because of what we want to do to the property with my sort of investor partner on this one, we probably will be looking at still spending a few quid. And it seems a bit counterintuitive. And even there's part of me that says, look, because I know I've seen this property develop over the last year and a half, and I've seen its quality raise from what I would consider very low marks out of 10 to now mid-range marks out of 10, to then go in and start smashing things around seems a little bit counterintuitive, but that's kind of what we do, what I want to do. Because of that, one of the things I'm looking at is that we'd probably give it to students purely because it will save us a couple of grand on council tax a year. And, over 5 years, that's a significant amount of money.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning a bit then. So you mentioned that you found this property and this landlord through a sort of rent-to-rent campaign. So what is a rent-to-rent campaign?
Well, these can take many forms, but essentially a rent-to-rent campaign will just be reaching out to landlords, and you can do that via direct mail. You can do it via social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, email. My background is actually direct marketing, so it's something I'm very familiar with, actually quite enjoy, because it means I get to use some skills from 20 years ago that I haven't used. So writing copy or, just reaching out and just that whole process. So essentially it's just a marketing campaign, online or offline, meaning either letters or digital. and then just dealing with the inbound conversations that happen as a result.
Yep. So I think direct mail marketing is one of the sort of main ways that's promoted in property training courses to do this kind of thing. And one of the ways that they suggest you find your mailing list is through requesting the HMO landlord register from councils. And I think you've done this in the past, and you've recently requested that list. But this time, it came with a big fat warning. What's that?
Well, in summary, it's GDPR, which means you have to have express permission to use data with the purposes of marketing in mind. And that probably is the caveat to anyone listening, is that you do have to be really careful now. And I think what that means is we're all going to have to look for new ways. But as you said before we hit the record button, when it comes to landlords, there are so many different ways you can get this data. I have also recently got a quote for buying landlord data. And if you're purchasing data, obviously one of the remits is that these people have opted in to receive marketing activity, whether they knew they did or not. Obviously, legally, they should have. Yes, you can buy that data. It's not cheap. Well, not cheap for us anyway. You're talking about probably around £1,000 for a couple of thousand names and addresses. However, that is one route. You can also, what I do as well, is you can go on to all of the portals, and you can look for properties that are empty, that are quite clearly student or HMOs, and typically you'll see them as that, because they'll talk about rooms. Spare rooms, very good for that. You can tick on a box that says look for whole houses, and actually you can cross reference that with the HMO register. So it's one of these things where people, and my first reaction when GDPR came across is like, oh God, well that's another route closed to us all that we can't do. And don't get me wrong, it is for the right reasons. None of us likes to get junk mail, but I would say, in the last 5 years when I've done campaigns, I've maybe had 2 complaints. And probably, okay, you could argue it's too many. But to be honest, if I've mailed 2,000 people and I've had 2 people complain about it, I don't, send a mailing every week, for example. So it's not like I'm really spamming people. But yeah, so there's lots of different ways you can do it. You can still get HMO register and just use that. I actually use the HMO register for other reasons, in terms of understanding whether I might get planning permission on a property. But that's a different conversation.
Yeah, indeed. There's lots of uses for that data. I think that there's sort of other grey areas around this, in so much as where marketing is concerned, you're not supposed to market to consumers unless they're given express permission. But the rules are a bit different around businesses. And is a landlord a business, or is a landlord, especially a smaller landlord, perhaps still just a consumer? And this is something I'm never quite sure about in PATMA either. I mean, I don't do any direct marketing in that sense, but I'm never quite sure if PATMA is a B2C business, so a consumer business, or a B2B business for businesses. And it's always a bit of a mix in how you categorize it. But something that sort of, I mean, I'll say bugs me, but I mean, it's not a big issue. But there are other ways to get contact details, and one of them is through the land registry. And this is public data, if you like. Every property that is owned has an owner with name and address in the land registry. And you can go to the land registry and you can pay £3, I think it is, for a title deed for any property, and it has this information in it. Now, nobody putting that data into the land registry has said, yes, please send me marketing information. But at the same time, I don't quite know where the marketing rules are around that. But letting agencies certainly use this. And when you put a property up for rent on portals and things, I've had this in the past. Local letting agencies obviously spot that, and they will go to the land registry, pay their £3, and they'll send you a nice letter saying, oh, we see your property is up for rent. Have you considered using our wonderful letting services? So I don't know where the rules are around that, but they certainly still seem to be doing that. I think you said, Stuart, you've had some of these letters recently as well.
Oh yeah, so the studio flat, which I put on the market via Visum to put it on ourselves, well, within a week we had five letters in the house saying it looks like you're trying to rent a property. Would you consider our services? Like you say, I think they've clearly got a service which flags up a property and gives them that property address. Now I can't remember; it might just say to the homeowner or something. It probably does, because I would think that also maybe gives them a little bit of latitude if it's just to the occupier, the homeowner or the occupier, because then it's not personal.
I'm not sure where your letters were sent. You can tell us in a moment. But where the last time I rented a property, as in rented it out, I received, I can't remember how many, but at least one letter to the property itself. So that's fair enough. They know the property is up for rent. And again, you say addressed to the homeowner or landlord, I can't remember what they used, but delivered to that address. But I also received at least one letter to my home address. And again, I can't remember quite how they addressed it, whether it was to me personally, but regardless of the name on it, they've clearly looked up my home address based on being the owner of a rental property that they've actually found. So there's definitely some extra lookup of information there. And I've seen software products out there that actually do this for people, for letting agents. And they can sort of en masse say, find me the landlords of all these properties and mail merge this letter and send it out. So yeah, there are services that specifically do this. But yeah, I don't quite know where that fits in the marketing rules.
Yeah, like you say, I mean, there's a lot of grey area, and that's where you have to try and play if you want to do this without receiving ridiculous fines.
Yeah, so I think the summary is direct marketing can be used and does work, clearly, because you've had results from it. But be careful. Be careful where you get the data. Be careful how you use it. Just do your own research and work out whether you think you're within the rules or not. Because of course, you can just walk down a street and say, "Oh, that is clearly being used as an HMO, and I want to try and contact the owner." So put a letter through the letterbox and address to the homeowner.
Well, yeah, I mean,
yeah, there are ways.
If you know an area within a circumference of within a university or a hospital or where there's a high penetration of HMOs, you can do door drops. They're still highly legal, and a door drop, for anyone that doesn't know, is unpersonalised mail, but you'd pick a postcode or more specifically a postal sector, because a postcode is about 15 addresses. This is data that's old from my head from about 20 years ago, but you'd pick a postal sector and door drop them. So you just create one generic letter that says we're interested in your property, which you'll see all the time through your rental properties. Of course, the immediate thing I think about that is the thing about door drops is because you're one step removed. You're probably not going to the target recipient's home. It's unpersonalised, so it has that junk factor, i.e. could just get picked up and thrown straight into the recycling. However, there are other ways of doing it, and as you say, also you could just start writing your own letters.
Indeed. Right, let's move on from direct marketing and sort of reaching out to people. You achieved that, and this property owner got in touch with you, and you were initially talking about rent to rent. But have you actually done any rent to rent sort of structures or deals, whatever, with this property owner?
No, we didn't ever get to the stage of signing the agreement. So an agreement was created, reviewed, and actually agreed in terms of principle. So the numbers and the terms were all agreed, but it was just that the owner wanted to do certain things to the property before we progressed with the deal. And again, because it's taken over a year and a half, quite obviously things change, people change, and circumstances change, and therefore the owner now got to a stage where they clearly just want to release the capital from the property.
I think you said your spies found out that this was potentially being sold rather than anything else, and then you presumably got back in touch with the homeowner and asked them about that. How did that conversation start and progress and things?
Well, it was very open because I mentioned it to the owner and said, "Oh, it looks like an estate agent's been there." The owner said, "Yeah, we are looking at it, and these are the options and why. And it was quite clear to me that the owner was being transparent, weren't trying to hide anything. It was just they said that they were looking at options. And because of that, that sort of made me feel a bit more confident to say, okay, well, we'd like to put in an offer. Obviously, someone I felt was being more opaque or maybe trying to misdirect or because I'd provided some of my contacts and support to help with the property. And if I felt that was kind of not being reciprocated, then I wouldn't feel so great about, entering into a non-traditional purchase process, if that makes sense. But because I felt we're still having good open conversations, it felt to me, obviously, that's not the only indicator. I had to look at the numbers and work out whether the numbers would work for, my company, my investors' company. And they do. They just about work out to a way where we think this would be a good investment, given the current market and certainly the current market in the area.
So how did you arrive at that number? Did you research it and work out what it would be and make an offer, or did they say, this is what we're looking for? Can you meet that? Where did that go, or where did that start?
Yeah, so it's just a simple question. What do you want for your property? And the owner gave us that number. And I went away, looked at that number versus what I think we'd need to invest into it, the costs, what I think the future value, the GDV, the gross development value. I call it GDV, even though these aren't standard developments. It's more around a property upgrading and then a hopeful revaluation in, say, 6 months' time. And if those numbers sort of stack up in a way where, we're going to get a good return within a couple of years, then we'll look to go forward. Clearly, from the owner's perspective, they are going to save agents' fees. So, to be honest, they're pretty much getting what they wanted for the property. But as I said to you before, the difference is we get to agree some different terms. And I guess the one to highlight for this one is that the owner gets what they want for the property, but we will agree early access to the property, which legally is called a keys undertaking. And it's exactly that. We undertake to take the keys and we can start doing things to the property, but we are legally then responsible for that property and everything in it. And I've done that previously. But what that means is that rather than have to wait for the 3 to 5 month conveyancing cycle, add months as necessary, we can hopefully, once we get the first bit of paperwork drawn up, get access to the property, start doing the works as quickly as we need to. And hopefully that'll be within the next few weeks, get access to it. Just need to get the building team agreed and statement of works, schedule of works agreed and get moving.
A few weeks, that really is quite quick to get going. Is it tenanted right now?
No, it's been empty for a little while. And yeah, so it's been empty the time that we've been in conversation, so year and a half, possibly more. That also opens up other opportunities. So with problems come opportunities. So the problem of something being empty for 2 years is, as we all know, we've got damp, we've got unused heating, water. So there'll be a few skeletons which come out of the closet. Equally, when a home's been empty for a while, there are other benefits that we can look at. One is if you're redeveloping a property, rather than paying 20% VAT, if your building works was going to attract a 20% VAT, we might be able to reduce that to 5%. So that could help. So there's little things like that. There used to be an empty homes grant as well from the council, which I don't think that's available anymore, but it's something we'll look at just to see if there's any other support we can get. So there's, as always, with problem comes opportunity.
Does the council in this area have a limit on council tax reduction? So it used to be that when a property was empty, you didn't have to pay council tax on it. For some while now, some years, it's been the case that most councils have either taken that away completely, or they just give you a few months where you don't have to pay council tax when it's empty. So are you going to be looking to have to pay council tax because it's already been empty for too long, or does your council have a longer period?
Well, in other properties, we have had to pay council tax even when it's empty. As you say, we got an initial period where there was zero tax, and then it's kind of got phased in. So there might have been a slight reduction in the rate. But again, what I'll do is I'll argue with the council that it was a student property. It will be, again, a student property, and just see. But usually the computer will say no, and we'll have to pay whatever the computer says that we have to pay. But that's all just the cost of doing the business with this particular development.
So you said you're looking to knock this house around a bit. We're nearly out of time. So just very quickly, what are you planning to do with it, and how long do you think that might take?
I think the works will take about 3 to 4 months. And again, in my head, I'm expecting it shouldn't be more than 6 to 8 weeks, but I've just doubled it if you just refer back to Electrician conversation at the start. But essentially all we'll be doing is probably knocking some holes through walls and putting in en suites, and just upgrading the property, I would say, to a good standard where we've got nice brick walls, and all of a sudden it's just a place where people want to come and chill as well. So typically that's it. There's going to be a couple of other bits of work we have to do, but essentially it will really be just put en suites in and refurbishing to a really high level so that people are attracted to the property. And that's my modus operandi. Is it a property where the students or the working professionals would be happy to invite their friends round? And if the answer is yes, then we're doing a good job.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to hearing more as that project progresses, and you can tell us all about the extending times and extending costs and budget overruns.
Oh yeah, thanks.
and all those things we've got to look forward to. But for this episode, I'm afraid we are completely out of time. So as mentioned at the beginning, please do reach out to us. You can contact us through Twitter. We are at Biz of Property. That's BIZ of Property. Or there's a contact form on the website, thebusinessofproperty.com, which is also where you can find all the show notes. And Stuart and I will talk to you again next week.